Good morning. Happy Tuesday. How's everybody doing today? I'm Connie Foote with Foote Title Group, where we protect your home ownership. Hope everybody's having a great start to your Tuesday. And first, let me say thank you so very much for taking the time to tune in today. I understand how valuable your time is, particularly in the morning when we're so busy trying to get off to work, get our kids settled, everybody on the school bus, get everybody where they need to be and get your day started. And I know that it takes a lot for you to take the time to tune in to us, and I really appreciate your time. So I want to say thank you so much first for doing that. If you're watching on the replay, thank you as well. I know how valuable your time is throughout the day, and so appreciate you taking the time to watch the information that we have available for you. Good morning, my good friend, Miss Pam. How are you today? Hey, Guy, how are you? Thanks so much for tuning in. Hey, Bethany, how are you this morning? So the other thing I'd like to share with you is if you find what we talk about valuable, please share it with those that you know. I try to get all kinds of good information out there, both experiences that we come across and things that I see that are potential concerns that people are having with respect to home closings and things they don't understand. So if you would share, it would help me a lot, because then it may help someone you know answer some questions that they may have. So thanks so much for doing that as well. I appreciate it. So this morning I wanted to talk about, this time of the year, we actually have a calendar of stuff we like to talk about. I work on those kind of things, about things that I see that come up during closing or as people are getting ready for closings. And so I try to come up with information that I think will be helpful for you to be more prepared when you get ready for your home closing. So one of the things, just shared your video. Let them know. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that, sis. Thanks so much for sharing and letting everybody know all the good information that we have. Hey, Kathy, how are you today? So today I wanted to talk about first the three most important documents that you're going to actually sign at your closing, what they mean, where they come from, how they are dealt with, and what it means to you. So the first thing I wanted to talk about, because I think this is one of the things that people are so confused about when it comes to real estate, is the title or the ownership of your property and how that differs from a motor vehicle. And the reason I say that is because, and why I do that comparison is because a lot of people compare, because a lot of people have vehicles, so they understand that they have a title to that vehicle, and without that title, they can't sell that vehicle or mortgage that vehicle, or do anything with that vehicle without having that title in their hand. And so if you misplace that title with respect to your vehicle, you actually have to go to your local motor vehicles organization, and whatever that happens to be in your jurisdiction, and you have to get a new reproduced title to allow you to be able to do anything with that motor vehicle. With a piece of real estate, it's totally different. Hey there, Pandora, how are you this morning? Hi, Angela, how are you? Good to see you on. So with a piece of real estate, the process and the documents are absolutely totally different. So with respect to the ownership, you actually have what's called a deed. The difference in real estate is the title is actually the chain of ownership throughout the existence of that piece of property. So if we were to go to the land records in the local jurisdiction where that property is located, we would actually search those land records on that piece of property and come up with a package of documents that shows the chain of that ownership, shows all the owners, whether or not they have mortgaged the property, whether they've given some of their ownership away, whether they've sold some of their ownership, whether they've gotten more ownership in that piece of property by adding different pieces around it, whether they've let someone have some access to maybe another piece of property through their property. So what a chain or a title does is it explains to you what's happened through the history of the ownership of that piece of property. So the word title when it comes to real estate is a totally different thing than what it does when you're talking about a motor vehicle. So in ownership, in title, when we talk about that ownership, the document that gives that is called a deed. And that deed actually spells out who owned it before, who owns it now, and what property they actually took ownership to. There's a description of that piece of property. So if you were talking about a motor vehicle, it really just uses the VIN or the vehicle identification number and maybe has a little bit of a description about the property. But when you're talking about the ownership of a piece of property, you're actually when they describe it, they actually describe it by the area of the piece of property, where it's located, documents that are recorded in the land records that show drawings of that piece of property. So it's a lot more involved. It's usually a paragraph, maybe a little bit more, kind of the old school way of describing property before there was drawings recorded. Was a surveyor would actually go out and do measurements on the lengths of the property lines and describe where that property happens to sit within that county, within that state. So that description is a lot more involved in a piece of property, and it shows on that deed, which is that ownership document. The other thing I wanted to point out about a deed is that when someone takes ownership to a piece of property, unlike a ownership with a motor vehicle, that deed, that document is actually recorded in the land records where that property is located. And so once that document is recorded in that land records where that property is located, you don't have to have that physical document in your hand, that original document that the seller signed when you purchased that property. So when you have a title to a vehicle, you have to actually have that original title to be able to sell that to someone else. When you're dealing with a piece of property, you absolutely do not. As long as it's recorded in that land records, that it makes it public record, and that document does not have to physically be in your possession ever again, anytime through the ownership. Anybody who wants to check on that ownership and is going to prepare things for the sale of that ownership of that property would actually just do a search of the land records and see that that document has been recorded, and that is where the ownership lives. So don't panic if you don't have your original deed from when you purchased that property. That's why. That's a little bit about that chain. The two other documents I really wanted to talk about were two things that are that you will sign that are respective of the mortgage. If you happen to take out a mortgage to purchase that property, which 75% of homeowners actually have to borrow money because it's a big investment, and you probably have a down payment, but very few people actually have several hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting around to actually purchase that property. So good morning, my friend Teresa. How are you today? Hey, Greg, how are you? Thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate it as well. So let's talk about two mortgage documents that you sign that are really important so you understand. The first one we're going to talk about is called the note, and the note is actually the cash document. That's the thing, when you sign that, that gives the lender the promise that you're going to repay that loan. So it is actually like a check. When you sign the note, let's talk about that for a second. So the note actually spells out all the terms of your loan, how much you're borrowing, what the interest rate is, when you're going to start payments, when you're going to end payments, how frequently your payments are, where you're going to pay them, who you're borrowing from, and it gives you all the specific terms of that actual loan that you're borrowing. Now, the thing about a note is, as I said, it's almost like a check. The lender holds that original note, and that original note is a very important document for them, because when they hold that in their hand, they actually own the ownership of that loan to get repaid. If the lender wants to sell that loan to someone else, which happens frequently, if you've ever had a mortgage, you may get a notice in the mail that says you need to start making your mortgage payments to another company. That's because they've sold that mortgage to someone else. And this means in your case that you're actually going to be making your mortgage payment to someone else. Let me make a little caveat to that as well. If you ever get a notice, you know, in today's world of fraud and things, people doing things that just aren't the right way, if you ever get a notice that your mortgage has been sold and you need to start making your payments to someone else, make sure that you check with the mortgage company that you were making the payments with, and make sure that they actually did sell that loan. There's been a lot of fraudulent things happening with respect to that process, where people would get notices saying, hey, your loan has been sold, you need to make your mortgage payments to a different company at a different address, and people would start making those payments when in fact that lender never sold that loan. And so unfortunately they've been making payments to someone else, and now their loan's in default because they haven't been making their payments to the company who actually owns that loan. So just double check and make sure if you ever get notice that your loan has been sold, that it really has. So with respect to that note, if the lender sells that loan to another mortgage lender, they will actually sign the back of that note, just like a check, and give it to the other mortgage lender. That original note is very important to them. Not anything you have to hold on to or be concerned about, but that's very important. So when you sign that document at closing, that is huge with respect to borrowing the money that you want to borrow. The third and very most important document is called the deed of trust. The deed of trust is actually the mortgage document that is recorded in the land records that lets everybody know that you have a loan and who it's with and how much you borrowed. Now, it does not have all the details of your loan, so it's not quite the same as your note. But the other thing about the deed of trust is the deed of trust puts your property, you are signing, putting your property in trust with the lender. And the reason for that is because if you are not making those mortgage payments, they have the right to execute on that deed of trust and actually prepare your property for a foreclosure sale so they can recuperate their money. Now, it sounds a little overwhelming, and it's really not ever a big deal as long as you make your mortgage payments, but that lender is loaning you an awful lot of money, and they are going to do everything that they can to make sure that nothing happens to not allow them to be able to recuperate that loan amount. So this is one of the very most important documents for them next to the note. Their two most important documents are the note and that deed of trust, because that deed of trust is recorded in the land records to make sure that you are making those mortgage payments, and if you don't, that they have some recourse to make sure that they can take that property over and sell it to try to recuperate their loan. Now, the deed of trust is probably about a 12-page document. It has a lot of clauses and information on it, things that explain things you can and can't do with the property, and explains foreclosure and things that the lender expects of you in order to make sure that that loan is secure for as long as you own that home. One of those things is that if you sell that property, then the loan has to be paid off. But there's several other things that are typically somewhat generic that are true on most deeds of trust, are very boilerplate and really have a lot of the same information on them. Sometimes a lender may attach a document that's called a rider, which is just an attachment that makes that deed of trust that's very kind of boilerplate more specific to the property that you're buying. So if you're buying a property that's in a neighborhood that has homeowners association, they may attach what's called a PUD, or a plan unit development rider, and it talks about you making your payments for your association fees so it doesn't cause the lender a problem with their loan. They may attach a rider that's called an ARM rider, or an adjustable rate mortgage rider. And last week we talked a little bit about adjustable rate mortgages. If you do an adjustable rate mortgage, that makes that deed of trust a little more specific about that type of loan that you're getting. So riders, if you see those with your deed of trust when you go to sign it at closing, are just attachments that make that document more specific to the type of loan that you're doing or the property that you're purchasing. So of course the lender wants to make sure that that's very honed in, because they want to, again, keep their loan very protected. So those are just a little bit of ideas on some of the, well, 3 of the most important documents you will sign at your closing. The deed, actually, you don't sign as the buyer. The seller signs that document. Only the seller would be signing that. But again, 3 of the most important documents that are at the closing and what you need to understand about them. So hopefully that helped you a little bit. Hey there, Mariana. How are you this morning? So hopefully that helps you understand a little bit about some of the documents. I don't expect you to always remember all of these things, and because of that, we have a lot of this information on our website. As I told you, we are committed to providing all kinds of information for you, and each month throughout the year we have new things launching, new information, new events happening, and so with that we're trying to do things to provide you more information to get you resources that you need. And one of those things is our website that we launched on January 1st. So our website has been revamped and it has all kinds of information. It's so much easier to find things. There's a buyer's tab, a seller's tab, and a realtors and lenders tab, and each of those tabs has specific resources and links that are specific to what your needs are. If you are on the buyer's tab, there is actually a under resources, there's actually a link for a sample closing documents book, which has samples of the documents we've just been talking about. Now, they're not going to be exactly what you see at your closing, but they're going to be really close, and so it will give you the opportunity to review some of that in advance if you had the question or you wanted to. There's also helpful links to all kinds of things that you may need for your closing, so you can go on there and click through any of that information. There's a home buyer's guide, home seller's guides. There is a closing cost calculator on every page on our website. So if you're thinking about buying something, or you're a realtor or a lender, or you're thinking about selling, you can go in there and plug in some information and get some closing costs. It'll ask you to register. That is really so that you can save those estimates, and you can go back and tweak them, change them, update, do any of that kind of stuff too. So definitely check that out. That's a huge resource that anybody can get on there and check out, and we really hope that that helps you with a lot of information. As I've said, keep your ears and eyes, sort of went into one word, ease. Keep your ears and eyes peeled through our website, through our emails, through our Coffee with Connie lives, and all of the postings that we're doing. We have something new coming out for you every single month, and we're committed to providing you resources and events and things that'll help you understand better about the closing process, be more prepared, have more fun buying the most expensive thing, but the most thrilling thing that you're probably ever going to buy in your life, which is your dream home. You work so hard to find that home. You need to make sure that you do your research and you have professionals working on your side that are taking care of you, finding the best realtor that works with you, finding the mortgage lender that is a perfect fit for you, and taking the time to choose who does your home closing. You have the legal right to make that choice. Please do the research and make sure that you're working with someone that is looking out for your interest, because the closing is very important, but after the closing, that company that does that home closing for you should be protecting your home ownership, and you need to make sure that you're dealing with a company that knows what they're doing and has the ability to protect you for as long as you own that home. That's what we do. We've been working hard to do that for you for a long time, over 30 years at doing that for you, and you need to make sure that you take the time to do it. So you have the right to make that choice who does your home closing, and I ask you to take the time to find the right fit for you when doing your home closing. So check out our new website. That is huge. Will help you with all kinds of resources you need. Thank you so much for taking your time to tune in. Please share this video if you felt like that information was helpful to you. There is definitely going to be someone somewhere in your friends list that will hopefully find the information helpful for them. Maybe they're looking at a new home, maybe they're starting to look for new homes, and they need to get this information. That way they can link up with us and they can start following so they can get this information as well. This is Coffee with Connie. We do this on Tuesdays and Thursdays between 8 and 9. Hopefully it helped you guys out today. Hope you're having an awesome Tuesday. Oh, shoot, almost forgot to mention, we are going to have a live webinar February 15th. I want you guys to start looking for the notifications that we will sit down and do an interactive with you. It'll be in the evening at 7 p.m. We're going to be posting it everywhere in the coming week, but it will be the 5 most common questions we get about your home closing and buying real estate. So you definitely want to tune in and you want to share that. So be on the lookout for that. That is going to be in the middle of February, and then we also have something new launching for you the beginning of February. So please stay tuned and share with everybody you know, and hopefully we're providing you all kinds of good information to help you out going forward with your home that you already own, or as you're looking to buy a new home or a piece of property to build a new home on. So I hope you guys have an amazing Tuesday. I really look forward to talking to you again on Thursday. Thanks so much for taking your time to tune in, and please share. Sharing is caring. Have a great day, everybody. I'm Connie Foote with Foote Title Group, where we protect your home ownership. Talk to you soon.